Hello everyone, today we will continue to look at the explanation of a question bank for a Red Hat certified engineer. Next, we will start from the first question. In the last class, we mainly set up the environment. After setting it up, it's best for everyone to take a snapshot. This way, whether you want to do a beginner or intermediate experiment, you can directly restore the snapshot, which will be more convenient. Because initializing the environment takes some time, using a snapshot will allow you to restore it more quickly. Well, here, first of all, we can see that it's quite obvious that starting from the intermediate level, the requirements for our questions have increased. Previously, in the beginner exam, we usually only had 1 or 2 lines of requirements, but here, for one question, it's 1 or 2, and later on, some questions couldn't even fit on one page. I even had to shrink them a bit. So here, actually, you can see that the requirements for the questions have increased. However, don't think that it has become more complicated. It's not that it has become more complex, but rather that the volume has increased. Relatively speaking, the volume has indeed increased. Well, at least it's like this. As for the time spent, the intermediate exam requires at least twice as much time to complete compared to the beginner exam, which is quite normal. This is because the number of questions has indeed increased. However, the difficulty hasn't really increased that much. So, if everyone practices slowly according to the question bank, there will definitely be no problem. This is our approach. This is basically the situation. Next, let me introduce to you how we will proceed, which is our approach. One point to pay attention to in the exam is that from the first question to the last, everything is based on Ansible. All our questions are Ansible based. The first question involves the deployment and configuration of Ansible. And from the second question onwards, it's about the actual usage. Regarding the first question, as we mentioned earlier, the number of virtual machines for our intermediate exam has increased. There are a total of 6 machines that we need to operate. We won't elaborate on the environment, but we need to operate a total of 6 machines. Among these 6 virtual machines, 1 is the control node and 5 are client nodes. For the first question, we start by installing on the control node. After installing Ansible, we add the remaining 5 client nodes to our Ansible setup, which you can think of as a cluster, or simply a group. Here, let's first take a look at the requirements of the task. Firstly, all operations are executed on our control node, meaning we basically do not need to use the other client nodes throughout the process. Throughout the process, they are not needed. Even if you need to verify whether the result of each task is correct, you don't need to remotely access the client nodes. We only need to execute some commands on the server to check the results, and we can see them. This is a point that needs attention in this section. Next, let's first take a look at the specific requirements. First, in the first step, you need to install our Ansible. The second step is to create our inventory. This inventory essentially records all of our host names of the connected clients. The IP information here mainly refers to the host names. You don't actually need to write the IP addresses in this file, because our system has another file called the etc host file, right? This file mainly records the relationship between our main daemon and the IP addresses. Then, as long as there is a record in our list of topics, we actually only need to record the relationship of the combined users, or rather the relationship of the combined nodes. It's more accurate to say groups and nodes rather than users. Here, we can see the requirement is to add nodes 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 into different groups. Of course, nodes 3 and 4 are in the same group. The others are all in different groups. The grouping is mainly for later, as there are some questions. Here, we need to, through different groups, to operate some nodes of different groups to conduct an experiment. Now, this here is also a normal group. But here, we need to pay attention to the fact that after these 5 are added to the group, there is a special requirement, which is that it requires us to add the pro group into the web service group as a sub-member of this group. This can also be operated normally. So above, we add nodes to the group, and below, we can also add a group into another group, which is also achievable. This is one of the requirements of our task list. The second requirement is to create our configuration file. As for the configuration file, it is. Here we have the 2 most important files, which are actually a host file and a configuration file. In the configuration file, we need to specify 3 things including a host inventory file, a roles file, and custom, a file in the directory. All these paths here need to be specified in the configuration file so that our service can find these files and perform specific operations. This is the main requirement of our first task. Alright, let's officially start the operation now. Let's officially start. Here it is. Let's not rush to emphasize some syntax issues for now. Because the first task doesn't involve any syntax, starting from the later tasks, we will emphasize and focus on some syntax issues. The first task is just a normal installation and deployment, configuring some files. So first, let's log in. My IP hasn't changed. It's the same as in the beginner's exam. First, where do we need to connect to? Inside the virtual machine, right? Okay, in the beginner's level, we had 2 virtual machines, which is a connection between server A and server B. But here, we have 6 virtual machines. Of course, we only need to connect to one. Once we connect to this one virtual machine, we can through. SSH to connect. Alright, after connecting. Now that we're connected, the first step is to install our service. Install our service. Here, you need to pay attention because, as you can see from our command prompt, it shows a $sign, which means what? It means it's a regular user. So right now, we are operating as a regular user. This is actually different from the beginner level, where we performed operations as an administrator. Basically, in the beginner level, we used administrator operations, except when dealing with containers, where we switched to a regular user. The rest are administrator operations. But our situation is this. In the intermediate level, as we can see, we start off as a regular user, right? What do we do if we don't have permissions? We grant permissions. We can proceed with the installation, and once it's installed, we then start configuring our specific content. First, we require several directories, right? We need many directories and files, among other things. The first step is not to create files right away. These files, according to the requirements, actually belong to the same directory, all under the same directory. So here first we need to create our directories. This directory does not exist. The directory Anthony does not exist, so we add one. By using P, we can create both the directory and the rules directory at the same time, which is more convenient. Okay, let's create these 2 directories first. After creating the directories, we then start. You can think about whether to set up the configuration file first or the host inventory. Actually, the order doesn't really matter. It's not that important. Just after you finish executing, don't rush to verify. Just complete both tasks. And after finishing one, don't rush to verify. Just complete both and then start verifying. If you only have one, there might be issues with verification. So here, first let's switch to the directory we just created under home. This directory. After entering, let's first set up the configuration file. Let's start with the configuration file because it includes things like the host inventory file, the role file, and the collection file, among others. So here, let's first edit our configuration file. Here we can take a look. Currently, I have only created one rule. At the moment, only one rule is created. So here, we first copy our configuration file. Where does the configuration file come from? The default configuration file is under the etc directory. So in the etc directory, this is the file, which is our default configuration file. Is there a need to copy it? Actually, no, because as you can see, this file doesn't contain any content. So what do we need to do here? No need to copy, as you can see. There is a command prompt here. Can you see it? You basically don't need to remember this command. You can just copy it directly. After we directly check this software, it will prompt us with a few commands. First, initialize our directory. The directory structure. After initialization, it can write our configuration into the configuration file. However, do not copy this command directly in its entirety, because this command is executed under the etc answer directory, so the default file path is actually placed there, in this secure directory. But in reality, we require that it be placed in a subdirectory of our regular users directory, because we are now operating this service as a regular user. You can't just put this configuration file in many places under the AC directory where there is no permission to modify, so we place this in our own subdirectory. In our own home directory, we actually have the highest permissions. So here we can directly generate our configuration file into our current subdirectory, and that's fine. The previous command is fine, there's no problem with this command. After the initialization command is executed, pay attention to the path here. We just need to copy it here. We will write the path ourselves next. Redirect it into the home directory, under our answer directory. As for the name, pay attention to the name here. Make sure not to write it incorrectly. Ansible.cfg. And here we just press enter to initialize and generate the file. Next, we can start editing the configuration file. Press enter, and you can see this time the content has obviously increased. Although there are still many registrations, we can now perform some operations inside. Alright, first here we can start writing. First, we need to specify. What do we need to specify? The path of our host inventory. The path is. Here, of course, we first need to write the current name of the host. Equals. What does it equal? It equals the path we just mentioned. Anthony. Of course, this path is required by the task. We don't have this file yet, not yet, but soon. We can edit it. This is the first host inventory file. After writing the host inventory file, the next one is the remote user. Second, the remote user. The third one is the role path. The role path is. This is also what was required in the question just now. For these, just follow the requirements in the question. Just follow the requirements in the question. Of course, you can copy it. You can copy it. However, if you make a mistake here, you can verify it later. So, it's also fine not to copy. Alright, after we finish writing the role here, the last one is collection. This content is actually our RHCE 9. A new edition in version 9. It wasn't there in version 8. It's a new edition in version 9. Alright, here we need to pay attention to the path. Be sure to be careful when writing it. Make sure not to miss any dots. Don't miss any dots. And here we use, hey, let's complete this. Make sure to write the path correctly, okay? After writing this, you can check it, take a quick look. First, the first one is our theme manifest file. Path. This is the path required in the question, and later we need to create this file under this path. We also need to create this file. Alright, we see it here. There's a bit of a problem here. Not at the back, but at the front. Alright, the first and second are remote users. This is our current user. Check the path for the third. Rows. Here, separate them with colons. Use colons to separate. Alright, no problem. The fourth one is the path for our final collections. Remember to use what here? Use a dot. What does the dot represent? It represents the current directory, right? Because this configuration file is in our own system user, which is in a directory of our regular user. So here, we just use the current path. A relative path will do. Then finally, give it a go, no problem. All right, let's save and exit. Ah, of course. There's another configuration here. We can do it like this. Let's search for another small configuration. Easy to find, got it. For this configuration, we need to add one here. Here, basically everything is what? It's all comments. Basically all comments. So, what do we need here? For example, we can search for something, search for the inventory section, which is essentially our list of themes. We see that for the host here, we are writing in this position. Right? In this position. Here, actually, you can see that there is a lot of information by default. Of course, if you want to find some corresponding configurations from it, it's actually not necessary, right? For just a line or two of information, you can write it by hand directly. You can write it directly inside. Of course, there is some information. Some of it is commented here. All commented. This is the situation of a configuration file. After writing it, we save the initial. What do we need to do next? Okay, next is, this is the first file, right? After configuring the first file, what do we do next? We can use commands to see our version. Ensemble. Seeing the version, if it can display the version number, then there's no problem. If it can display the version number, there's no problem. After filling out the version number, what's next? Next, let's take a closer look. The second file, we just modified the configuration file, our main configuration file. So what do we need to modify in the second file? Modify, well, this of ours. The host inventory. What should everyone pay attention to here? Mainly pay attention to the requirements of the task. Just make sure each group and each node correspond correctly. This isn't very difficult, but be careful not to match them incorrectly, or write the wrong node name or group name, because this will affect some subsequent operations. All subsequent operations are actually based on this host inventory to identify which specific host belongs to whom. If you make a mistake here, and you identify the wrong one later, then basically, you won't score on many of the questions. It's possible that this question will affect the scores of all subsequent questions, so make sure to check it several times. Okay. Alright, next let's edit this file. What was the path we just wrote? It is. It's actually right here, isn't it? The path required in the question is, home, Greg. Ansible, right? We can actually edit it directly here, can't we? There's no need to write the full path. Just edit it like this. Alright. Once we're in then. By default it's empty. There's nothing here. Let's start writing. First, the requirement is to place node 1 in the DV group. Alright, 1. Node 2 in the test group. The third, node 3 in the pro group. And node 4. Alright, these two need to be written down. The fifth is the balance group. Note. Users, well, we can't just say users, but the relationships between our nodes and groups are all written down. There's something quite special here, which is that we need to write a web service sub go. Alright, the pro belongs to the web service group, where here, this is a way to write the list of principals. It's still relatively simple, right? This way of writing the list is quite simple. After writing it here, we then save it, and after saving, the next step is the verification process. To verify, the first main thing is, well, through our Ansible's pin module, to verify our final result. Oh, the 2 here refers to all the hosts. The position here can be replaced with what we wrote above. Yes, including DV-Test Pro and others can be replaced. If it says OR, it means that all the hosts in our list need to be checked because we need to test connectivity, right? This sentence uses the module's return, which is our pin module's good return. Let's see the effect. Alright, here we are. You can see that the stage here is actually all connected, right? It's all connected. At least the list of hosts is fine. You see the IPs all match, right? 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and there's no error, which actually just prompts us to enter yes. The result is 15, yes. Here we entered 12, right? Okay. You can see here, there's actually an issue with passwordless login. Actually. Did we do it? Actually, we did. But not everything has been connected yet. So here you can change something. You can change it like this. For example, change it to DV. Okay, here we enter yes separately. No problem. As long as it's green, it's fine. The second one is like test. This sentence means everything is fine, there's no problem. Next, the Pro version doesn't work. Pro has 2. So what should we do if there are 2? If there are 2, we can directly use what? Well, directly use node 3. Right? We can directly write the topic name. It's not necessary to write the group name or anything. Finally, note 5. The free login has been done. It just hasn't been connected before. So the first time you need to enter yes, this doesn't affect anything. This is for cases where it's been done before. If you haven't done the immune login, please do it yourself. Make sure to do it yourself. Note 5. Alright, everything is connected. Now let's execute the OR command again. If there are 5 green lights, then there's no problem. Alright, now nodes 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all connected properly. And this is the basic setup of our environment. Okay, up to this point, this is the installation of the environment for our first task. For this task, the main thing to note is that we primarily edit 2 files. First, our main configuration file, which includes our host inventory, elo, roles, and collections. These 3 components. After writing everything down, how do we proceed? Using the version command, you can check the version. If you can see the version, it means our installation was successful. Next, we have our host inventory file. It's crucial to double check each node name and group name against the task description multiple times. If there are no issues after verification, then proceed. Because if you make a mistake here, it will be very difficult to correct. It's very difficult to pass, that's what I mean. If you make 1 or 2 mistakes, it can actually affect many subsequent questions. So it's crucial to check everything correctly here. After ensuring there are no issues, use our P module to verify the connectivity. From this, you can actually verify whether passwordless login has been set up. If it hasn't been set up, it will prompt you to enter a password. In cases like the one just mentioned, it didn't ask me for a password, just to enter yes, because it hasn't connected before. For the first login, you need to enter yes. This is similar to when we use remote software to access some hosts remotely. You also need to enter yes the first time, right? To confirm. So here, it's like this. You can connect to each machine one by one, enter yes 5 times, and then you can connect normally. If passwordless login hasn't been set up, first we use the SSH command to generate our key, and then transfer the key. To be precise, transfer the public key to our 5 nodes, and then you can achieve passwordless login. This is a point we need to pay attention to. For the first task, the final result is that all 5 machines can connect, and they are all green. So, there's no problem, and we can continue to proceed. This is the content of our first task. If you need the complete question bank, you can leave a comment below and purchase the most stable question bank at the best price. That's it for today. Goodbye, everyone.